Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. I bid to Madam Madiha and my fellow classmates. I am Nurul Izzah Binti Raman. My team and I will be presenting on copyright law in entertainment and creative work industry. The reason why we chose this topic because copyright is important as it helps to protect the value of an author, academic researcher's work by giving the originator of the work the ability to protect it from unlicensed and uncredited usage. Also, copyright fosters intellectual creativity as it provides an incentive for a creator to work freely, allowing them to gain recognition for their work as well as protecting their livelihood. So while preparing for this presentation, our group doing the library research on primary sources such as law cases and federal constitutions for them to refer the copyright cases. Not only that, they refer to the secondary sources such as law journals. We also do comparison with other countries such as United Kingdom and Japan for law cases and the copyright law itself. For Islamic perspectives, generally copyright law is part of the intellectual property rights recognized by Sharia and the law. This right is given to the creator of the work in return for the intellectual effort made. Next presenter will be Sister Iffah and Sister Fathiha. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you Nurul Izzah for such a good explanation on the introduction about copyright law in entertainment industry and also the creative works. Now I am Iffah Binti Ahmad Hilmi and I will be going further into this topic and I'll explain about the conceptual and background of copyright law. If we take a look from Intellectual Property Corporation of Malaysia, MyIPO, copyright is actually the exclusive right to control creative works which is created by the author, copyright owner and performer, and this right is for a specific period. So it is actually a legal term to be given to describe the rights that creators have over their works, and such works are ranging from music, paintings, books, databases, computer programs, advertisements, and a lot more. So the question is, does Malaysia has copyright law? Well, yes, Malaysia does has copyright law, and in Malaysia it is governed by the Copyright Act 1987. So we know that in Malaysia we have copyright law. So what are the type of works that are eligible for copyrights? In this slide you can see there are 7 works that are eligible for copyrights, which include literary works, musical works, artistic works, films, sound recordings, broadcast, and also derivative works. And I'll go further and explain one by one about this, okay? So the first one is literary works. Literary works means all written forms of a work. It can be scripts written by scriptwriters for a movie, or books written by your favorite author, and many more. And it also includes any work that we use as references, such as articles, encyclopedias, journals, and much more. Number 2 is musical work. Musical works mean any type of work that is made which is accompanied by the music. For example, the musical notes or lyrics that is written by the musicians or composers before they become a whole song. Third one is artistic works, which include graphic works and all those work that represent such artistic qualities such as architectures, photographs, sculptures, and a lot more. Such works deserve copyright purposes. Number 4 is film. Any shots from a movie or from a drama or any works related to films. In this case, if you take a screenshot of a movie or any drama that you love, be careful because sometimes it may be breaching the copyright infringement, especially if you use it for your own benefit to gain any money. The next one in this slide would be sound recordings. So for audio recordings can be in the form of audio tape, such as audio tape for children's book or podcast, and a lot more. And the next one is broadcast. Broadcast would be anything that is transmitted, whether it is wireless or not. So anything broadcasted, such as a radio interview, which is broadcasted through radio, or maybe a news anchor, which is broadcasted through TV. Such works are eligible for copyrights. And the last one is derivative work, which is those translation works that some authors do, or adaptation from the original work to be broadcasted into another form, such as an adaptation of a book that is turned into a movie. So such things deserve to be protected under copyright law. Now, to discuss further, there is a thing in copyright law that is called fair dealings. So to explain in the most simplest way, fair dealings is used in relation to copyright exceptions in the UK. Meanwhile, another thing that is commonly known is fair use, which is a defense under US law. And the most common understanding that we have to know is that both fair dealings and fair use is to achieve the same objective, which is so that it should not obstruct the free flow information and also educational needs of the public. So talking about this, what do fair dealings or fair use do? So it's like an exception in the Copyright Act that allows you to use other people's copying material or other people's work for research, private study, criticism, review, news reporting, education, as long as you do it in a fair manner. Okay, so in Malaysia, fair dealings went through multiple revisions and shiftings. And the latest one was introduced in 2012, and it was amended and standardized according to the set created by the World Intellectual Property Organization Copyright Treaty. Now, what makes something fair or not? What makes a fair dealing? So there are certain circumstances that will determine whether something is fair or not. In most cases, courts will take into account several factors, such as what you see on the slide. The first one is the purpose of the usage, which means if you are copying one's work as reference, or you copy someone else's work so that you can produce something similar as your own. What's the purpose of it? Number two is the nature of the work, whether the work is something that should be copied or not. Number three, amount taken from the work. So whether you are totally copying something and take a huge part of the original work, or you just copy a little bit portion of it. Number four, manner in which the work is obtained, and this is related to the rightful owner, whether they consented or not. And the last one is the effect of the use of the market, which means if you who are copying, or if any person who are copying tries to compete with the original rightful owner. So such matters are taken into account before the courts can decide whether someone has breached the copyright infringement or not. So this is what we call fair dealings or fair use. Now let's see what the next presenter may have to tell all of you about other things about copyright law. So Fathiha, I'll pass the floor to you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Fathiha Binti Fauzi. Thank you, Iffah, for the wonderful presentation. So I will continue the presentation with the next part that is available in conceptual and background. First of all, we will look at the requirements for copyright. In Malaysia, copyright protection is provided under the Copyright Act 1987. Unlike trademarks, designs, and patents, and other intellectual property rights, there is no specific system of registration for copyright in Malaysia. Copyright exists as soon as the original work is created and belongs to the creator of the work automatically. There are a few requirements for copyright, which are original, reduced to material form, belong to one of the categories of protected works, and complies with qualifications for copyright. So what is meant by original? Original means that there is a person that is responsible for the creation of the work, and the effort of creating the work comes solely from him. Additionally, a person doesn't need to prove that the work is completely new or never done before, or the work must be novel or unique for it to be original. One of the things to keep in mind regarding originality is that even if the underlying idea or information is drawn from a common stock of knowledge, the creation of works need to involve the requisite degree of skill, judgment, selection, and ingenuity. In other words, the work must be the product of the author's independent skills and effort. Reduced to material form simply means a work or an adaptation of a work or a substantial part of the work should be in form of the material form, whether it is written, recorded, including in musical or dance notation, film, painted, and etc., before it is capable of copyright protection. So the idea will only receive protection in the form which it is expressed. Next, the work must belong to one of the categories of protected works. For example, published works such as books, magazines, or sound records will receive a copyright. Lastly, the work must comply with qualifications for copyright, which are there must be an expression of ideas in literary, dramatic, musical, or artistic work, and it must be original and in material form. Next, we will talk about the owner's right for copyright. There are few rights that they deserve to receive, which is the first one is legal rights. Legal rights enables the owner of the work to enforce their copyrighted works in cases for infringement, either by civil or criminal action. Second is economic rights. This right gives copyright owners the rights for reproduction, communication to the public, to perform showing or playing, and commercial rental. Moreover, owners could derive financial reward from the use of his works. Lastly, it is the moral rights. Based on Section 25, Clause 2, it stated that no person may authorize the presentation of the work without identifying the author, distort, modify, or mutilate the work. Every copyright work has different duration of copyright according to different categories of works. For literary, musical, or artistic works, the copyright shall subsist during the life of the author and expire after 50 years after his death. For published editions, sound recordings, broadcasts, and films, majority have a similar duration of copyright, which the copyright duration subsisted 50 years from the beginning of the calendar from when the work was first published. If the work have not been published, the copyright shall begin from the beginning of the calendar year following the year of its session. Moving on to the last part, which is the procedures to copyright registration according to MyIPO. MyIPO is a portal that is responsible for the development and management of the intellectual property system in Malaysia. There are three basic steps in the procedure. The first one is the owner of the work should complete the form, which is the CR1 form, which is it needs to be in editable softcopy PDF format and shall be submitted to MyIPO together with the owner's information, contact person, signature, and is duly scanned. The second step is owners need to provide a copy of the work, which only in electronic or soft copy form is accepted. The size of work that exceeds 3 GB will be charged with extra payment. The third step is owners must pay for the prescribed fee. A certain amount of fee was set according to different categories. Fee for deposit of work submitted manually or online is 200 ringgit on a one-off basis. Meanwhile, manual application is available with payment of an administrative fee of 50 ringgit. So I guess that is all for my part. I pass to the next presenter. Thank you very much.
I'm Nabilah, and now I'm going to present some applicable laws that can be found under Copyright Law 1987, a few copyright cases that happen in Malaysia, and recent issues. These are some related laws under Copyright Law 1987. First is Section 7, Clause 1, which is the works eligible for copyright that includes sound recordings, films, and broadcasts. Next, Section 27A, which explains about the copyright licensing, which gives a society or an organization the power to operate as a licensing body after being approved by the controller. Any organization or society that operates without obtaining the license is liable to a fine not exceeding 500,000 ringgit. Next is section 36, which explains about the infringement of copyright. And the last one is section 43A of anti-camcording. This part discusses the offences related to any individual that were caught attempting to operate any kind of audio-visual recording in a screening room. They will be charged not less than 10,000 ringgit and not more than 100,000 ringgit, and imprisonment not exceeding 5 years or both. Next, let's look at examples of cases in Malaysia that relates to the copyright law. First one is the case of Elias bin Idris versus Muhammad Shamsul bin Mat Yusof. Plaintiff Mr. Elias is an author of a book, Aku Bosya. He had claimed that the film directed by Muhammad Shamsul, the defendant, entitled Bosya Jangan Pilih Jalan Hitam, has violated the copyright law in which the movie was based on his novel without consent. However, the defendant denied the statement by saying that he never read the novel and it has nothing to do with it. And as a result, the court had dismissed the plaintiff's claim because it seems like this is not a result of copying, but instead a common issue that everyone knows about. Moreover, the plaintiff had failed to show causal connection and evidence to prove the movie was a result of copying the novel. So the court had decided that the plaintiff needed to pay a total of 100,000 ringgit to the defendants because of the defamation he made through his postings in his blog, which had tarnished the defendant's reputation. Next is the case of Sheikh Abdullah bin Ahmad versus Universal Music Malaysia. Sheikh Abdullah, or known as Datuk Sheikh, was a professional singer and had signed a contract with Malaysian Recording Corps Sdn Bhd in 1983. Later, the producer Ahmad Nawab had signed an agreement with Music Valley Sdn Bhd in 2005, which gave them the rights to sell the albums. So after his coming back to Malaysia after his performance outside of the country, plaintiff discovered that his albums were sold on iTunes without his knowledge. And to add to that, every album on iTunes costs around 4.99 USD. The plaintiff also mentioned that he was never granted any royalties since 1983 from the albums sold in forms of CD, cassette or LP records, and had claimed a total of 20% royalties from the court. As a result, the court decided to grant him only 8% of the royalties because he failed to prove that there were 100,000 units of albums sold in the market since 1983. Moving on is the recent issue which involved Astro Malaysia Holdings Berhad. Miasat Broadcast Networks Sdn Bhd, the service provider for Astro, had brought this issue to the Intellectual Property High Court in Kuala Lumpur. This issue is about the illegal sales and distribution of TV boxes or illicit streaming devices (ISD), which can provide access to copyrighted works without authorized access. This issue could also be included under the Copyright Act 1987 of copyright infringement. And as we can see from this article, Astro applauds the court for their bold step in fighting piracy in Malaysia. So that is all for my part. Moving on to the next presenter. Thank you.
I am Nurul Jalil, and I am going to talk about the practices of copyright law in other countries, which are United Kingdom and Japan. And I am going to talk about the Islamic perspective also that relates to copyright laws and issues. So, for the first countries, which is the United Kingdom, in the UK, intellectual property rights are legislated with the UK Copyright Designs and Patent Act 1988. It first originated from the Statute of Anne. UK copyright law is almost similar to Malaysian law as it covers the same types of protected works, but it has an additional type, which is the typographical arrangement of published editions. One of the cases that happened before relating to the law is 20th Century Fox, Film Corporation and others against Newsbeans Limited in 2010. The case happened when the claimant contended that the defendant performed a copyright infringement by providing the site Newsbean for Usenet users to find copies of films and enable it to be downloaded by the users.
They perform the misconduct and encouraging others to use the illegal site, and also they communicated the copyright works to the public according to the claimants. As a result, Newsbeans Limited was held liable for the infringement issues under Section 20 2B Copyright Designs and Patent Acts. Next, we are looking at the practices in Japan. The practice of copyright law in Japan is quite similar to other countries with its own usage of terms. The copyright law of Japan is based on Chosaku Kenho, which means Copyright Act. The documentation of the act is written in Japanese, but the non-Japanese could access the website to understand or to see the act in the website Japan Copyright Research and Information Center (CRIC) to understand about it more. The system of copyright law here is divided into two parts: the author's rights and neighboring rights. Under author's rights, there are moral rights and economic rights that cover the rights for the author's ownership of their works. The neighboring rights is more on the rights of the produced work when they were utilized by other parties. In 2021, the issues of consuming animes and mangas on illegal online sites has alerted Japan government to establish a new law on this matter. Since then, any organizations or sites that infringe the copyright by any means, such as providing the links, the website, or the files for the users to download and watch the copyright animes and mangas, will be shut down. The owners of the copyright works can sue the parties who operate the piracy. Besides, the offenders can be sentenced to imprisonment for 2 years, or they can get fines. For example, the company Cloudflare was sued by Kodansha, Shueisha, Shogakukan, and Kadokawa. All of these are actually the anime publisher. Okay, these publisher filed a complaint about the illegal manga site by Cloudflare before, but the complaints were ignored. So they start to file a lawsuit to the company Cloudflare. And another important case that need to be highlighted is the website Kiss Anime, that was also shut down as it breached the law. In discussing the copyright law and the issues related to it, we can include the implementation of Maqasid Syariah, Hifz al-Aqal, as one of the bases for practicing the law. Hifz al-Aqal, or protection of intellect, means to protect the individual's mind from intoxicants or the matters that can destroy the intellectual functions. In different contexts, it may include the protection of the products and properties that individuals possess. In some situations, such as reprinting books that have not been published anymore for reference or studies, it is permissible according to fair use. So, any money received by the individuals should be only for the printing cost and not for one's own benefit. It is also important to note that the action of violation on copyright works is considered as an act of stealing others' property. Stealing is sinful and overstates the heavy punishment for the action in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 83. The heavy punishment is for the action, and it becomes the reminder to every individual to not commit the crime.
Thank you, Sister Ezzah, for your brilliant explanation. In a nutshell, there are various benefits when we have copyright law in our country. First is exclusive use. Once we get our copyright for our work, others cannot use it without permission. If any infringement takes place, you can carry out legal action. Second is record of ownership. Once we get our copyright registered, there will be a public of record of the ownership of our work. Then, preventing misuse. We can prevent misuse of our work by registering a copyright. We will have more control over how it is presented to the public. The fourth is economic gain. The most crucial benefit is the company we derive from the same. We will have the sole right to any revenue that accrues from our original work. And the last one is encourage creativity. This encourage general creativity in the society as owners enjoy the benefits of creative work. That is all from us. Thank you.